You want to count us in?
Like
Three,
a
two, one.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Okay. We should have like a thing, like there's a count us in.
Yeah.
Count us in. Okay. 3.
Wait. What we have to decide what our thing is.
Like what
What
our
are we
thing
gonna
is.
say? Yeah.
3, 2, 1, and.
Something sophisticated.
Yeah.
Welcome to the.
And welcome to. Let me. Okay, wait.
Okay, go. Just go. Just be natural. We'll figure it out over time. We'll figure it out over time. That's just louder in my one ear.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
that's-
definitely hear you.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's better. Okay, cool. So let's start the conversation.
Okay. Count us in.
Okay, and in 3, 2, 1.
What's going on?
How you doing?
Good and you?
Hey, man. Just
Feel like we're in Joe Rogan.
It sounds like it, right?
Does.
Yeah.
Especially because you counted us in.
Because he does that. He does that whole. He does that whole spin thing.
Studio's a little bit different though.
Yeah, I mean, new digs, person got a
Different.
new place,
Continent as well.
all the way from South Africa. So I guess what's the reason that we're doing this?
We, for the longest time, have had many conversations that I think if we had the opportunity to listen back on our conversations, we would learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we don't have that. We don't have our conversations on tape. We only have memories of them.
Okay.
And I think that we cherry pick from those memories. And I think that there are a lot of lessons that we could have learnt sooner because we sort of taped it. So, and I think that we found so much value in our Wednesday night conversations that we thought, I think maybe this is my view, but I thought that this could be of value to other people and could be of value to us in part of, say, recording our growth and progress.
So that's fair. I think there's always been two concerns for me around this stuff, and one of it is, so typically like with a podcast, right, there'll always be an interviewer and an interviewee. So like the manner in which it's structured is sort of like Q&A. And then I think the other thing, I lost my train of thought on the other thing, but that was one of the concerns.
Was that a concern for you?
Yeah, it's like, because most of the time, like you'll listen, because it's always like someone else is learning, right? That's part of the interviewing process. Oh, and I think the second, I found out what the second aspect was. So I think one of the things that helps us in the discussions that we have is that by us explaining ourselves and our line of thinking, it's sort of like further, I think it like clarifies it to a sense. So it's like there's one thing about learning something, but like when you, in a sense, teach it.
When you verbalize it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it you actually like indoctrinate it a lot more.
Yeah, you learn a lot. Yeah, I mean, even in the process of fully understanding something is being able to teach it. And then I think like Feynman was someone who was very well known for that, being able to simplify very complex things because he understood it. So it's almost that way where it's like we are in the sense educating each other on something in a conversational form and not necessarily Q&A.
Yeah. And but then would you go on to say that like do you think some of those discussions that we have we're sort of trying to learn? Because I think one of the things that if I look at philosophers by their nature throughout time, always great thinkers, right? And I've always believed that one of the things that make philosophy such a great field is that you actually build your own mind out of your mind's own tools, if that makes sense. Like, so you actually conceptualize an idea and then you start validating it through the observation of the world as opposed to being given knowledge. And that's why I think sometimes things come a lot more intuitively then.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me specifically is I'm working on my ability to write and to sort of express my thoughts and learnings through writing. But I think that I do it better in conversation. So I think that oftentimes I can spend some time and be very introspective on a weekend and try and learn something, but I actually learn more in the discussions although it might be the same topic with you, because you actually, the way that you express that thought is different in speech than it is in writing.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially in a conversational format, I mean, I could sit and talk to myself, but it wouldn't be the same.
Mm.
So, if we're expressing two different viewpoints, or even the same viewpoint, we never kind of just close that viewpoint, because we're consciously trying to question it and trying to find the loopholes in that. Specifically because, and I think this is also the importance of the podcast, is that we have found holes in our previous ways of thinking now, but we didn't find it then.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a way of analyzing our thoughts that is different now than what we did then, because of the fact that we now see the holes. So we have, our conversations are different now than they were previously, because it's like we would sort of tell each other what life is.
Yeah.
And now we're questioning everything about it, including each other's viewpoints. We don't just agree with each other and tell each other,
So there's a lot there. Like the three things is that one of them is that when you build out those thoughts, is it's like when you question it, it's critical thinking. And another aspect of it is also, our viewpoint of the world changes because we've obviously aligned ourselves to certain goals that we want to achieve, and it's almost like the framework that we use to model the world gets invalidated by passage of time. And so if certain things don't happen in accordance with that viewpoint, you have to revisit the viewpoint. So that's something that we've had to tinker a lot with as we go on. And I think it's something that we've navigated fairly well, albeit a little bit sluggishly, to be honest. But, one of the things, and it's an interesting observation that Jordan always notes, is that when you have an era in the world, when you have a framework of the world, you align yourself to certain things, and that framework isn't working, the manner in which you have to query why it's wrong is infinite, and that's a problem. And I think a lot of the times we hash out a lot of really big ideas, and it's I think personally it's always helped us because it's developed that aspect of critical thinking quite a bit, to be able to poke. To be able to take a concept and then to sort of like poke holes in it and then like apply it in a different circumstance and then sort of say like, oh wait, but that actually doesn't make sense there. And then you keep moving these conceptual ideas in order to solidify it and say, yeah, that looks like something that's a little bit more concrete. I think it'll be interesting to hear how it develops, because even now, we probably think we have a good model of the world, a good way to act forward, but like it might not actually be the case 2-3 years from now, and it will just be good to sort of say, oh, okay, where did we not go wrong, but like how did we actually get to this articulation of the world?
Yep. Well, I mean, like Ray Dalio always says, if you don't look at the person who you were yesterday and think that person was an idiot, then you're not growing fast enough. And I think that we've had that experience where we're constantly evolving. And I think it's because we're asking those questions constantly. Even though you might come to the same conclusion, it's like you sometimes go through the process of fully understanding the depth of your concept of the world through experiencing it. And so you might not even disprove it through poking holes through it. You might just actually prove it. Although it was something that seemed to be like intuitive in some form.
So where do you think that urgency or that desire to understand the world comes from?
I think it has a lot to do with being human, first of all. And I think that it is like accentuated in some people because of their personalities. So I think that naturally we are like analytical people, so we like to understand those types of things, and we like to be able to. A part of understanding is being able to apply it, because we also want to. We also understand that we're in an experiential world, and so we want to live out those experiences. We don't just simply want to understand, we want to experience.
But would you say, like, because a lot of people don't actually want to, like, a lot of people just want to live haphazardly, and that's why they just want to sort of want to live, and life is what it is. Whereas,
Yeah, maybe too experiential.
yeah, whereas like me and you will actually sit back and say, like you'll observe, act, and then almost observe the manner in which you acted, and then come up with an hypothesis and try to frame. I think you're trying to model yourself in a sense to go forward in a better way.
I think it's because we desire something that we don't have. And that's almost a blessing to us in part of our evolution.
What do you think is that thing that we don't have?
I would say in the simplest form is that we want to experience the highest level of success, obviously within our perspective or desire. So you want to our image of success is different to other people's, but our image of success requires us to go through these phases.
Do you think that image of success is correlated with the highest version of yourself?
Yes. I would say they correlate with each other, and that's why it's a desire, and that's why it's aligned, I would say. And that's why the learning curve is so huge. It's like you have to actually figure so many things out to get to that stage, that by the end of the stage you're a more evolved person. It's not simply something that is purely physical. It's something that is mental as well.
Is it more evolved or just better calibrated?
Maybe better calibrated to what your desire is. So yeah, I would say so. I mean, you might be a shittier person, but you're
but that's what I'm trying to say.
You're calibrated to what your desire is. So
yeah,
maybe evolve is not the right word.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to highlight, is that maybe those.
For sure, yeah. It makes you a worse off father, but it makes you a better businessman.
Yeah, and
so how do you determine that? How do you define that by evolution? You can't. It's.
I think to some degree you can, and it's a discussion that's always weighed heavy on my conscience, is like, how do you balance the aspect of sacrificing who you are for who you want to become, and where you draw that line. And I think it's. Have you actually got a chance to read Justine Musk's Answer on Cure? You still haven't?
I haven't read it, but we discussed it in detail. Yeah.
So for me, balancing having that amount of acclamation and success against being
normal
to a degree, to a degree normal. That's the thing. Is that a price you're with? Because you might not actually enjoy the person you become. You might enjoy the output of who it is, of what you are, but it's like you might not actually find the process of being who you are fun.
I think that they're aligned. So back to the point I was making earlier, is like, I don't think you truly want it if it's at the expense of yourself. It might be at the expense of others, which might hurt you, but I don't think that you would be at the expense of yourself. Well, actually, now that I think about it, many people have definitely done things that they are ashamed of in order to achieve success. And I think that they can't let that go. So I think that is a reality that is true. But I think if you do it in a way that is, there needs to be some sort of alignment, and it sounds like a very spiritual thing, but it's like, if you always deep down know what is the best thing to do. And it's like, what is in line with your integrity and with your conscience. And I think the people who suffer that are the people who overstep that. And like, they intuitively knew then that they shouldn't have done it. And they'll probably tell you that now.
But don't you think it's somewhat, there's a point, and it's a point that I think I'm at, think I was actually, is that there's a point where the actions you're taking are risky. They feel risky. So it's like, to your point of saying that, like, okay, you should understand it intrinsically, but the things you've done intrinsically as who you are have gotten you the results that you don't want. Yeah. So it means that you're gonna have to, you know what I mean?
Be better.
Be better, yeah. And it's like, if you do change, and it feels scary, are you going, and it's Jayovsky's, what in that book, can't remember the name, but you know, once you commit the murder, you now have to become the person that's committed murder,
Yes.
as a person that's conceptualized it. And it's not, look, murder is just it's a wayward example, but
Yeah.
that's the aspect of trying to draw that line between who you are, who you want to be, the price of, and I know that you want to try to say, look, you need to balance it as much as you can.
See, the thing is, though, is like, okay, we can compare these examples where it's like, I get what you're saying, but I think you're confusing something that goes against your intuition versus something that is uncomfortable. So it's like, cool, yeah, changing your circumstance, changing your job, changing your house, those kinds of things are like, they're uncomfortable. But when you intuitively know that it's like, I need to do this because it's good for me. So it's like you understand that in an underlying way, although it is uncomfortable. Whereas like committing a murder or something is like,
and that's
I know that's
a far off example.
Yeah,
yes.
but it's like, okay, screwing someone in business. It's like, okay, I know that I'm going to take this guy for a run, and he will never live the life that he thought he was going to live because of the decision I'm making now.
But that's, again, that comes down to the question. You have to, at a point, question your own intuitiveness, because your intuitiveness has gotten you to a place that you didn't want to be.
Well, if you're already there, we're in a hypothetical situation now, at least in my mind, where you've already made it. So you're saying you're in a hypothetical situation where it's like you haven't made it, but you need to make the decision that could change your life.
Yeah. No. I'm just saying that from the perspective of a person's psychology, right? Where do you draw the line between them, drawing the question between their intuition and what they believe they know they should change? Because I think those things are one and the same.
See, I get what you're saying. The issue is, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The issue is that it's a long game and not a short game. So it's like, it's problematic when you say, my intuition hasn't gotten me there thus far. It's like, makes sense, but how long have you been actually relying on it? It's like, it's the same conversation we were having earlier about like investing in stocks. It's like, the guys who invest in stocks were down for most of the time, then they were up, but they made the highest profit. So it's the same thing. It's like, okay, cool. Based on your intuition, it's like you've been down for most of the time, but if you keep trusting it over a long period of time, you'll do well.
Yeah, so then
it's difficult.
That begs the question of why change. Because I think, like, you asked yourself the question of where do your whims come from? And like, you can raise the question across time, like since you were a kid. Like, why did certain things speak to you a lot more? And a lot of that you can attribute to intuition. But then you get to a point in your life whereby you start questioning said intuition because it's gotten you results that you didn't want.
I wouldn't say intuition, though. I would say it's more of a superficial desire. Like, I don't think intuition actually would change over time. I think like it's like you're saying, like, what's happening? Yo, there we go. We're back. Your intuition would. I don't think who you are fundamentally changes. It's who you are in relation to the rest of the world that changes. So it's like your intuition will remain the same. Because that's not superficial. You can't change your intuition. It just is. Like, intuition is actually like, it's not a scientific topic that we can actually break down.
Yeah, I get that. But a lot of the times it's going to come to a point of questioning your intuition.
Sure. But you don't use bad decisions that you made blaming it on intuition.
No, but I think that's, you see, for me, that it's I think to some degree you have to, because you look at life spanned across time, and a lot of the decisions you made, friends you made,
So let's define intuition. Let's first understand
Intuition
what
is like
intuition.
intuition is like this thing that it's like, what are the things that you are drawn to?
I'm gonna Google
Intuition. Okay.
Let's figure it out.
Can you hear in both?
No.
Still.
Yeah. Just very loud in one ear. The ability to understand something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning. A thing that one knows or considers likely from instinctive feeling rather than conscious reasoning. It's same thing, different way. So, okay, so it's something that is instinctive.
Yes.
So let's figure, what does instinctive mean? So
it's a thing that
it's
comes
like-
naturally.
yes,
But that's the thing. Like, that's what
you
I'm trying.
might naturally be shit at making decisions.
Yes. And it's like, at a point, you're going to have to question your own intuition. You're going to have to be
Sure.
like, wait, this guy actually is not good for me because he sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like, at that point, then you've got to, you start unraveling a lot of your life, if that's the case. If your intuition, that's the question about like the essence of your being. Where does it stem from? Where does your intuition, it's like that whole thing of, I mean, as an example, when my aunt and my mom were here on Sunday and they were praying in this house and whatnot, and they were like, the way that they spoke about my talents, it was like the typical Christian ideal, right? Like, these things are not yours, they were given to you,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, you think about like, where does Joe Rogan talks about this. Where does the music come from? Where does inspiration come from? Where does the creativity come from? And if you're saying that your intuition is, it's that it almost plugs into that, but you're saying it's wrong. You're saying that it hasn't, what it's been doing for you for the past 28 years or whatever the case may be has been incorrect. I think you're playing with the fabrics of nature to a degree.
See, I think it ties back down to my original hypothesis, where it's like your intuition is aligned with what you truly desire. So I can't remember what the exact words I used in the beginning of this conversation, but it was like they are aligned in the sense that it's like what you truly want as a person is aligned with your intuition, because it's the depth of you of what you actually want. It's not superficial. So it's like maybe your intuition has been failing you because you're doing the wrong thing. It's like if you go against your intuition, it means that it's not aligned with who you are as a being. So it's like, if I'm a successful person, or like let's say I'm going to be successful in the business world, my intuition will be aligned with that. It won't be against that. Otherwise, I would never be successful, and I would be unhappy doing it, because it's not actually who I am as a person. So it's like, back to the thing, is like you can't change your intuition because it's who you are as a person. It's like part of your fundamental nature.
So what happens if you don't like the outcome of your intuition?
You would, because that's who you are. Otherwise, it's superficial. That's what I'm saying. It's like because you have high desires, you think that, I'm not saying you, but I'm talking about like people who have very ambitious goals, think that people who don't try to achieve those ambitious goals are people who are unhappy not achieving them. So they think, fuck, people are unhappy just doing a desk job. But it's like they're actually happy with that. So it's like their intuition aligns them to that, and your intuition aligns you to something else.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like I'm talking about my psyche as an example. It's actually a really good example. It's like there's certain things that I'm doing that I'm like, yeah, I don't like this, even though it's getting me the outcome, but it's against the intuition.
Okay.
It's like you're naturally acclimated to being a nice person, and that's what you actually want to be, that person. But you like, that person doesn't get me what I want, so I'm going to go against that person. Is that, you see, that's the point I'm trying to play on, is like, if the nature aspect of who you are isn't getting what you want, and then you're sort of saying, okay, I'm going to have to tinker with that to get what I want. Is it?
But it goes back to the same thing that I was talking to you, where I was saying earlier, is like changing your environment. It's uncomfortable, but you know you have to do it. You know you should do it. So maybe it might be a similar example where it's like, it feels uncomfortable not being this easygoing, agreeable person. But it's like, you know that it's part of, like, your intuition is telling you that this is part of your growth, so you have to do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not against your intuition. It's still part of your intuition. Because your intuition is telling you, hey, you're too much of a softie. Fucking man up. That's why you're doing it.
But that's different. That's different aspects of it. It's like then, because, you know, at a point you've got to ask yourself, where is this entity that is, not entity, but like, where is this energy that drives your decision making? What is its purpose?
Amen.
Like,
Tune into our Bible class this Sunday.
No, like, yeah, like maybe I'm trying to be a little bit too meta on this, but I genuinely,
I get that, but
yeah.
it's the fundamental, deepest question. It's so deep that we're going into Alan Watts territory. Yeah.
But it's like, you don't. I genuinely believe there's something that we're not there's an intrinsic quality with the world, that aspects of intelligence that we all have access to, and we tinker with it, we play with it, right? And your argument is, your argument's not the right word, but your point of view is to say that is ever changing, dependent on the person that you want to be, to some degree, right? And my argument to that is, my point of view to that is to say that is who you are.
So let me ask you this: do you believe in destiny? Do you think that there's such a thing
Bro,
as destiny?
I prefer destiny over plans, memories I can span. Life, come on.
Yeah. You know? So you believe, okay, so, but then in the same breath, so if you believe in destiny, it means you can't believe in free will. So do you believe in free will?
Yes.
Then you can't believe in destiny.
No, you can't tell me to live my life, bro.
I can't.
You can't tell me.
This is the biggest free will
question
issue. It's like it's a big issue. It's like if you believe in destiny, it means that every choice you make is somehow predetermined.
Yes.
Which means that it's not free will. It means that the choice is made before you make it.
Yes, but if
it's not free will.
If it's not made by you, then what? Because that's the.
My point is that it's made by you. My point is that you can fuck it up.
I'm saying no, you can't.
But that means that if you weren't destined for something, you can try as hard as you can, and you'll never get it.
Yeah.
That's fucking sad, man. Like, what if I was not destined to be a billionaire? Then I'm fucking around this whole time. Might as well just be
shoot yourself in the leg.
Taking drugs.
Bro, become an addict. But that's the thing about free will, is that I think you can tie in free will with destiny. It's like those people that you meet that are naturally successful. It's like no matter what they do, success finds them. That's how I look at life. I look at the way, like, I can tell you right now, you haven't in the past 25 years, you haven't applied yourself in the best manner possible. But look at you now, downing a glass of whiskey, sitting in $1 million apartment, like, just having a good time. You're driving an X5. You're pretty good, you know, like.
Yeah.
But that
could be better.
Yeah, right?
Sure.
But you can't say that. There's an element there that some of the decisions that you made or the environmental aspects of it were out of your control. And I think that's what life is. It's like there's aspects, like you can live life hard and it can suck. And you can live life hard and it can go very well.
Yeah.
And that aspect has nothing to do with you. It's just the destined path that you have. So yeah.
I agree with that. To an extent. But so it's like, okay, cool. Maybe we can agree on a middle line between free will and destiny. So we can say you have a predetermined destiny which you are capable of living, but you have the free will to live that or not.
To deviate from it.
that. So maybe we can say that, all right? That's just sort of something that I'm planting a seed in the back of your head,
okay.
Right? But so you have an internal and an external world. So going back to your previous point about you can work really hard and your life can suck and things can work out, or it cannot work out. So it's like, okay, cool. You have an internal and an external world. It's like, okay, cool. We can both agree that you have no control over the external world.
Mm-hmm.
You can't actually change the fact that we have fucking COVID or whatever it is, right? But you can change the internal world. And that's where the free will for me comes in. It's like, I can change my perception of how I see this. And that is my free will. So it's like, I can live at home with people that are like, at home where I don't want to be. And I can choose to be fucking unhappy, or I can choose to be okay with it. And that's purely a mental state.
Yes.
It doesn't change anything external.
I see where you're going with this, and I agree with that.
So there's like there's a
free will.
There's a duality to it.
Like,
so there's like we have to find a middle ground between free will and between destiny.
So it could be that your destination. This is actually interesting. It could be that your destination is always going to be the same, but your viewpoint on it is different.
So your experience of achieving is different.
That's a big idea. Yo, yes. That's a.
We're gonna stop for an ad break.
Our sponsors.
Our sponsors.
Jesus.
I mean, I would love to agree with you, but I think that I also think that okay, this is let's maybe continue with the internal external world thing, right? Your internal world, okay, can affect the way you experience your external world, right? But it's similar to many conversations we've had in the past where it's like, okay, cool. In terms of your subconscious mind, right? Your subconscious thoughts affect the way that you engage with the world and therefore change the outcome that you have. So therefore does change the external world. So it's like my attitude to the world can also change the way I engage with the world, therefore changes the way the world responds to me. So it's like I don't have a direct change, but it's indirect enough to make a change.
I think that aspect. You see, the only problem with that argument is that it falls flat on his head because of it falls flat on its ass because of you can't prove that the world wasn't going to go the way that it was going to if that viewpoint didn't change. So I genuinely believe.
But I can prove that if my attitude was different, the world would respond to me differently.
No, you can just prove that the actions. You can just.
I would take different actions because of my different attitude.
Yeah. So what you're trying to say, you're trying to draw a line between your thinking and the world, which is fair because you can always bring context after something happens.
Sure.
But before is a different story. So what I'm saying is that the world might just be.
You would have done that anyway.
Yes. It's just that you're looking at it differently. So it's like it validates itself. And it's like that's the idea and I think that's probably the most truest thing. If I'm thinking about it actually, because a good example is how we've made this shift from Esther Hicks to the JP, right? From
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, and
he's gonna be on our show next week, guys. Tune in.
And what was evident about that is that we came back and we were like, yeah, this doesn't feel as good or as happy. And nothing's changed. The external world to some degree hasn't changed much. It's just the viewpoint of it is different.
Your experience of it.
Exactly. So it may be yeah, there you go. See what I'm saying? So it may not be. This actually might not matter. It's just how you look at it. That's the idea.
I mean, it's interesting. It is definitely because it's like the way that you perceive things changes the meaning of those things. So it's like, what's a great example? It's like, okay, cool. When we were like deeply in the Esther Hicks stage, we would see so many like synchronicities in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
God, like, the lady who helped us at the till was like 111. The bill is 111.
Yeah.
You're seeing all these like wishes flying around hitting your car.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fuck, man, I'm getting all these messages from the universe.
Things
but
great.
It's like,
It's like
the same
shit.
wish hit the guy's car behind you, and fucking nothing happened to him either.
Yeah, he didn't feel. He didn't feel it. He didn't feel
He
the
didn't feel
universe.
anything.
He didn't feel a universe.
There was no
blessing him.
universe. There was just a fucking wish, man. It's a seed trying to get
Trying to get to where
trying to get
it's
to
going,
where it's
bro.
going.
Yeah,
and you're in the way.
that's it.
Yeah.
And that's. I don't think it's a. I think.
But it's a different way of looking at the world.
But
right.
I think it's a good. I think it can be good.
It can. I mean, we were happy, man.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying like.
But we didn't achieve anything. But we were fucking happy.
But but that's what I'm trying to say is that path is still gonna be there whether you like it or not.
That reality, yeah.
Yes.
That reality exists now.
Yes. Like
But
it
we just
always
didn't
choose it. Yes.
But that's part of the internal world which you have full control over.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that aspect, the way that it plays itself out in the world is because of viewpoint. That's why I'm saying
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying is like because the way you feel internally plays out differently in the world, right? Which means that you affect the world differently.
No. I'm saying that yeah, I see what you're trying to.
It's like if I'm listening to Esther Hicks, right, and I'm feeling like, I don't know, I'm feeling like everything's gonna come to me, and I do nothing.
Yes.
So I spend the day at home, I'm like, ooh man, just good vibes, gonna fucking rub some crystals,
Yeah.
chill, because things are good, things are coming.
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna happen. But if I'm watching JP and JP saying, hey, you're not actually the best version of yourself, fucking be better.
But there's
And then I
things-
decide to work.
yeah, and do something about it.
The output is different. So the way that I engage with the world is completely different. So the outcome has to be different.
Yeah. No, that's what but the internal way that you've looked at it is completely different as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you're saying the first part of your line of thinking isn't true, because there's been times where you'd sit around and do nothing and someone would say
Something
like, hey,
happens.
yeah, something happens, and then you
Yeah,
deposit
fuck.
300 grand in your account. So you can't. That's why I think the path is what the path is. It's laid out for you.
Yeah, it's like some people get it really easily and some people
Just
don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
And it's like, it's not even law of attraction. It's just
the
fucking the way it
it's
is.
the one. It's the vessel you chose. That's
Jesus,
what I
man.
believe.
I get what you're saying, and
But
I'm
it's-
validating your point with what I just said.
But you're saying it's
But
bleak,
I'm still struggling to
except
fully agree with it.
with it because it sounds bleak.
No, it doesn't. Well, I mean,
It's not. I know what it means when
it somewhat sounds
sounds
bleak,
bleak, yeah.
because it's like if I'm not the fucking chosen one, then
what
you know,
the fuck
what am I
I
doing?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, then it means that whatever I'm doing now is my destiny. So I'm doing the right thing. Therefore,
But you can believe
I
yourself.
can only do this.
Yeah, but
It means I can only do this.
But it means that you get. But that's the reason why you're in the singular form. It's like you can only do this. That if you believe you're the chosen one, the path is the path that you chose.
Well, it doesn't matter what you believe. It's just what it is. That's the problem.
Boom.
That's the downside. The downside is like, I believe I am, but
Yeah,
you fucking
But
can't.
but it is. But like to your point, it is what it is.
Yeah.
The way that you look at it is different, but it is what it is. So it's always going to be what it is. It's just that the way that you look at it is different. That's
So
all it is.
Yeah, then your experience of it is different.
Boom.
Sure.
That's heavy.
Interesting.
That's an idea. That's gonna leave you. I'm gonna pause it for a little bit.
Well, the question is though, what does that mean from a like experiential point of view? It's like, okay, because the gods have decided that you will never be a world famous rapper, you won't.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? Regardless of how much you desire that. I think that feels a little bit fucked.
It doesn't, because it's like there's some things like, but it's there's some things in life that are like that. Like if a kid, I mean, you've seen those Make-A-Wish things where the kid's like got a dwarfism thing and he's like, I want to be a professional basketball player. And everyone's like, oh, here's an actual basketball player. And it's like everyone knows the elephant in the room is that you are not going to play basketball.
Sure.
I think there's a consolidation with your brain. There's a consolidation with your psyche. Like I genuinely think it's the same thing. You're just looking at different ideals.
It's the same thing. Your disability is different.
It's not even that. I think to some degree, like how can I put, so one of the things that makes this experience better is understanding the world implicitly and understanding the world in terms of its totality. So like,
which is impossible.
it's not, yeah, it is. To a large degree, it's impossible, but you can pretty much synthesize like a large,
maybe your own reality.
yeah, like, but
not the whole world.
Oh,
Your world.
yeah, like a large part of it, right? And I find a big correlation with people that are successful and people that consume information. Like it's not a coincidence. Like Bill Gates,
Yeah, fucking read 7 books.
guy
a
read the
week.
encyclopedia when he was 10, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Elon Musk reads like a book a week. You know,
Yeah.
I think part of it is that like books are these maps. And the way that we navigate the world is through those maps. You can navigate the map better because you have multiple reference points.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the experience is somewhat still the same. So you can make, I believe that you can make the world what it is because it is what it is. It's like that whole conversation we keep having with Russell, like we are gods. I just think our experiences are different. I don't think you can. There are some limitations you have to be aware of. You know, am I gonna fuck Kendall Jenner? We don't know, but the likelihood is
It's pretty low, but we'll still bargain on it.
We'll push on. But it's one of those things, like
Sure.
and if we take those things and say, well, then given those instances, how can you navigate the world the best possible way you can? It's like, well, get a bunch of maps.
See, that sort of ties back into the conversation we had, I think, on Friday. Where I was listening to that Sadhguru guy.
Yeah.
And he was saying, he was actually speaking about the flaws of belief.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying there's a difference between belief and knowing.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, I can throw a rock up in the air and I can believe as much as I fucking want, the rock is still going to fall on my head. And it ties into what you were saying now. It's like there are laws of nature that you can't actually go against.
Yeah, they're like somewhat irrefutable.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's why a lot of people now, like, I think it was Ricky Gervais said this, but he was like, the difference between fiction and non-fiction is that if we had to throw away all the non-fiction books, I think it's the non-fiction or whatever, but the books that are like factual, if you had to throw all of those away in the past, like they would all come back. You know, like, the findings.
It's sort of the science versus religion arguments.
Yeah.
Like if you had to burn all the Bibles, like the Bible would come back different. But if you had to burn all the science books, the science would come back the same.
Yeah,
because it's reproducible.
Yeah, and that's what I think. That's what I think this is. It's like there's fundamental laws. Use those laws, you'll be fine.
But the problem with the destiny conversation is that we don't know what our destiny is. So we don't know what laws are bound by. So it's almost like the destiny conversation is almost like you have a specific set of laws that apply to you.
You only.
Yeah.
And
that's a problem.
But I do think it's true.
But it's a problem.
Why do you think it's a problem?
Because you don't know what laws apply to you. Because me and you, we're young, we're in our 20s, we're like, okay, cool, the world is our fucking oyster, man. By the time we're 50, we could be billionaires. Meantime, the world decided, nope. So it's like, now what do? You give up so many things in opposition of a law, if you want to call it that. So what do? But I mean, it's like, this is also the thing. It's like, it's not such a straight line. It's like, I mean, Ray Kroc, McDonald's. Oh, no, not McDonald's. Colonel Sanders, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy only became successful when he was like 88 or something. So it's like, what was his laws? Do you know what I mean?
But that's the thing, is that like this guy's made businesses for like the past 60 years, only got successful when he was 80.
Yeah. I mean, the guy was most successful after he was dead.
But those are his laws. Those were, and I believe to some.
But did he choose the laws or the laws given to him?
That's a good question. I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't know where we were before this. I don't have any idea. But I think somewhat to your point about the intuition, I think the intuition and
They're aligned.
Yeah, I think intuition and destiny are aligned.
Fuck, man. What about people who live really unhappy lives?
What do you mean? Unpack.
Like, people live really... Like, our conversation works out great when you are speaking about people who live... Are you going to go to the bathroom?
I wanted to go get ice.
Go get us.
Just like keep going on your point. I'll hear it.
Okay. Fuck, I can't remember my point now.
People who live.
Oh, yeah. So, okay, sure. So, how do you justify people who live these lives that are like so deeply unfortunate? Like, I mean, you get people who, I mean, they're born with a disease that by the time they're 12, they're going to die. Or that, like, that's an example. Or it's like, you get a kid, like a kid who is raped, that literally fucks them up for the rest of their life. How do we justify that in terms of the conversation that we're busy having?
Okay, that's fair.
He's saying that's fair. He's not by his mic.
That's a fair comment. That's a very fair comment. So
because you know what I mean. It's like,
yeah, I do.
It's a very privileged conversation where it's like, oh, your destiny. It's like, okay, cool. What happens if you die in a fucking car accident?
Yeah, and that's your destiny.
Yeah, it's a shitty destiny, man.
But that's the thing, is that I don't know where this all comes from. And this is the constant existential question.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, cool. Maybe I can almost fast forward what you're going to say, because I know that it's like, okay, cool. Let's say a being has decided what your destiny is, right? You have no choice of that, and the interpretation of good and bad is relative, because there is no good without bad. There is no up without down.
I don't even think it's that. I think we choose the I think we live our experiences through the vessel, and your soul is that vessel. Like, you are who you are, and what you are doing are so intrinsically intertwined that it only exists in this instance for you at that particular time.
Okay. I get that. So do you think that people choose bad circumstances?
I don't think they choose it. I think it's the path that they to a degree.
Like deeply.
I don't even think it's. I don't think it's
not even subconscious. It's otherworldly.
Yeah,
almost.
It's almost
Okay.
otherworldly. Yeah.
I get that, but it's such a fucking easy cop out. You know what I mean? It's like, it's such an easy cop out of why things are the way they are, because they're fucked up. It's like things can be, someone's life can be completely fucked up.
I
and
get
it's
it,
easy
man.
to be like, well, they chose it in another world. You know what I mean?
I 100% agree with you, but there are other explanation for that can't be rationalized either. And it's like one of those has an almost esoteric aspect to it, which you can sort of somewhat, you almost resonate with at a soul level, and you hear those points and you're like, I get that.
I get it. Yeah,
you know,
100%.
like you get it, but you have no proof.
But there's no rational.
There's nothing.
It's intuition.
There's no, like, Einstein didn't prove a theory, a couple hundred. It's like, it just
Sure.
feels appropriate.
Sure. So it's like, it's almost like in one of Alan Watts's lectures, he was speaking about if you had to dream, like let's say when you fell asleep every night, your dream felt like it lasted 75 years, and you lived an entire life in your dream every night. So it's like, as soon as you went to bed, you were born and you experienced the life for 75 years, but you had full control over it. So it's like you had complete control over your dream. So
That'd be boring.
you would live your complete life for 75 years, maybe 5 nights, and then you would start fucking with it and start creating different things and whatever, because you know it's just a dream, and you know you're stuck in this dream for 70 fucking years or 80 years. So it's like, okay, cool. So therefore, what is the best dream? And the best dream is a dream that you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the dream we're living in now. That ties back into what we were saying, is like, it's part of the problem, but it's part of the it's part of the blessing, if you want to call it that, of the fact that you don't know what your destiny is. So going forward, like, I mean, if you knew your destiny was you'll never be better than you are now, fuck, man. You would have no motivation to do anything. Your life would basically be over.
But it's because you were different. Like, they could be people that have a disability and they're okay with it because that's them.
Sure, man. I mean, I watched a video just the other day on some guy. I don't know what the disease is, but he was speaking about it. And see, like he made that become something that empowered him to motivate people. It's like, hey, man, mindset. See, but that's the whole internal external thing. He can't control the external, but he controls the internal.
And I think,
but the internal affects the external.
External, yeah.
Fuck, man. There's depth to this shit.
And it comes back to that. I think I keep going through it, and it seems the most plausible thing is, to some degree, there's a level of destiny. There's a level. I'll put it this way. There's a level of there's an aspect about what we're doing in the world that isn't of our doing. And if it's not of our doing, that means that it must be somewhat predetermined. We just don't see it that way.
Sure.
So if that's the, because you have conversations with people, and like as an example, we just did this now where we went through a piece of rationale, right, without any evidence, and we both said that makes sense. Where does the conceptual framework or reference point for something making sense and agreeing it amongst parties come from? Like, where does this? There's almost like
it's not taught to you.
Yeah, it's not. There's like this intelligence that just exists amongst us, and it's like there's certain people that get it and certain people that don't. People that do get it typically live better lives, and it's like, why is that there? And I've poked around with that.
Yeah. So what's the point of the people that don't experience it or don't know it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I
mean, I could in the same breath, I can almost hear Alan Watts saying like, the people who don't know are the ones who are playing the game of life the best, and it's like, it's almost like when you dive too deep into it and you understand that life is a game and you're playing this thing, you play the game differently. It's almost like a conversation now. It's like, because we know we're being listened to, a conversation is somewhat different. And it's the same way you deal with life when you know that this life is a game. But when you're so immersed in life and you like the good and the bad, I mean, you fucking work a desk job, you hate it, you know, I mean, you hate your wife, but you love your kids. It's just all these mixtures of experience. And the depth of that experience is you're actually playing the game the best way.
You do, but I think I can at least say from my psyche, my conscious that is living this reality, it likes control.
Yeah, 100. I'm the same.
Yeah, you've seen that with me out in Sabi. Like, I'm just like, close everything I want. I need to make sure my environment is a certain way. And I think that's just who we are. Yeah. And because of who you are is going to validate what you will become. Sure. And it's like, I don't think that should be a bad deal if someone's telling you that it's your destiny probably looks good. Like, I think there's something intrinsic with people when you meet someone and you've probably heard this a bunch of times, where people say you have so much potential. What does that mean? Where does that aspect of potential come from? How do they define it? And how do so many people all agree that is potential?
Is it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, for me, those are things that to some degree tells me
there's an underlying intelligence. Yeah,
has to be.
Sure.
If it's not intelligence, it's an energy, but there's a something.
Yeah.
That is there that we tinker on, we get access to, and there's rules to it, I think.
Sure. I mean, you know, there's so much depth to this conversation, and I mean, maybe I can add some value to it by describing some of the things that Alan Watts was saying in something I listened to the other day, where he was saying like the world exists of matter and form. So it's like, if you go down to the deepest level form, you find matter, right?
Mm.
And then obviously if you keep going down, you end up finding
Atoms,
atoms and protons and neutrons and whatever. Those are made up of mostly nothing. But regardless of that fact, it's like you acknowledge that form has an intelligence, and it's like it's somewhat indescribable. It's like, okay, cool. We know that a tree is made of atoms, but it has form, which is intelligent. But where does that come from? You know what I mean? And it's like, I mean, he even got deeper into the things where he's like, okay, cool. If you make a table out of wood, the table is made of wood. Okay, but what is a tree made of? A tree is not made of wood. A tree is wood. So it's like, it's almost like that intelligence is.
Yeah.
Like
it is.
Yeah, actually, you don't need to say more.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, man, I think I had a conversation with with a good friend of mine, Yashir, the other day, and you know, and he was talking about the Big Bang, right? And he was like asking the question about like what happened before the Big Bang. You know, there was a vacuum, and I'm just like, you can't. It's like that definition of Wikipedia, but like even the scientific definition is something like energy is always in motion, and it's like God is the entity that put it in
energy in motion.
Yeah, like initially, but even God, the entity, was, and it just keeps going on
it's
and on,
never
ending. Yeah, and it's like, for me, I keep thinking, we're an entity that is governed by something else trying to experience itself. He had an interesting outlook on saying that, you know, maybe we were from another planet and we came here to restart.
Sure, man, but who started that planet? It's like, you're just going to keep going backwards. Yeah, maybe we're from aliens from a different planet. Okay, cool. Who started those aliens? And then who started the ones before that? You get to the same question, actually.
It's such a mind... I don't think mind-numbing, but it's...
I genuinely just believe that we don't have the capacity to fully understand.
Like, so do you believe that do you believe our consciousness is trying to ascend to a different level of consciousness, and it may have like actual physical implications, like we may develop into four-dimensional beings? Like, that's the question I posed to you.
It's a tough one because it depends on your answer to what is the meaning of our existence. So it's like, is the meaning of our existence for the universe to experience itself? Or is the meaning to evolve to a different experience?
Yeah, it could be that they're synthesizing something.
Sure. I think you might be onto something because of the fact that evolution does exist. So it's like, what is the nth degree of evolution?
Yeah, play that process
out to infinity. And where do you go?
Yeah.
And we don't know that. We might just go back to apes.
Yeah, it could. I mean, like, think about it, like, we could just be on a small time frame on the ascension to that evolution.
We are.
And it's like, I mean, do you believe there's multiple lives? Do you think we'll get multiple opportunities to do this, or is it just a once off?
Man, that's a deep question.
Like, do you?
I think that, like, and I think Alan Watts has been a great sort of mentor, or I don't know what the correct word is. Maybe
Sage.
Too much whiskey. He says for him it's like, okay, for something to exist, the opposite needs to exist, right? We can agree with that. It's like, okay, cool. A positive exists because of negative, and, you know, up exists because of down, black exists because of white.
Death and life.
Death exists because of life. So what he was saying is though is like, okay, cool. He's like, everyone asks, what is it like? What do you experience after you die? But the answer actually lies in asking, what did you experience before you were born?
Yeah,
it's the same place.
Yeah,
same place. So it's like it exists in a cycle.
that's a lazy answer. I'm sorry to interject.
No waste,
It's lazy because it's almost like I can tell you now. I think death is a reset. Firstly, I think it's a reset button, and secondly, I can tell you now that when you hear stories about like things that happen like the 18th century, you feel that intrinsically.
Sure.
It's almost like you could have been there. You know what I mean?
I get you, but I mean it's like you have the way that your genetics and stuff work is like you carry a genetic code.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you've never met your great grandmother, but you're carrying her nose on your face. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I can disprove it through genetics. At the same, never mind the fact that there are more people living now than they've ever lived in human history. So, like, what do you do? And also, the arrogance about this thing is like, we portray images of God in the same way of a human,
yeah.
and we portray images of aliens the same way as human. They have 2 legs, 2 arms. Like, how does that even?
Yeah, but that's a low res. I mean, like if you go watch the movie, the one I'm trying to get you to watch, Arrival, you'll see that like the conception. Go watch Arrival in the Fourth Kind. You'll realize the conceptual version of what an alien is. From like
it's not
human,
but that's
all.
One version of it.
Yeah.
The popular conception of an alien is like a human body with a big head and big eyes. That is what you've been told is an alien your whole life.
Being a human is a weird thing, man. But you know, I think, and I had such a nice point to take this to, but I mean, what were we talking about before this?
Death.
And then you went on.
I said, the same thing is going to happen after you die as what happened before you die. Because it's a cycle. And then you're speaking about coming back.
Yeah, I think...
See, I don't know about the whole coming back thing. See, it's like...
this is what I wanted to say. Like,
okay.
So I mean, have you met people and you thought that was a low res?
What define low
like
res?
That's a low res rendering. Like, have you ever met someone and you've looked at their face and you've heard them speak and you're like, they didn't spend time on this one?
For 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, I was like, nah, this is a low res rendering.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you talk about like there's more humans than there's ever been before. I think there's sometimes I'm just like...
He's half a human.
Sometimes I'm like...
So you die as one intelligent person, you come back as 2 dumb people.
No,
what is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying that there's certain people that are just more intelligent. Like,
yeah, but what does that have to do with...
It's like how Sandra... like when Sandra meets you, she's like, you're an old soul. It's like, what does that mean? And it's a lot of people that are in touch
that
realm will meet you and say like, yo, you're an old soul. It's like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
It's like... It means that you've done this a few times
before.
Yes,
but
and you can. This is why I'm saying, like, you can actually, you somewhat actually know.
There's a part of me that wants to believe that.
No, there's a part of me that actually feels that.
Okay, there's a part of me that feels that. I agree with that because I have an affinity to old things.
Yeah, bro.
Like castles and shit. I have such an affinity to that.
Dude, like old school jazz. You're just like, what?
Sure, but the thing is like, okay, cool. I don't know if this actually... I haven't actually done this sort of experiment. But it's like, okay. I was listening to Jordan Peterson this morning. And he was speaking about creativity. And he was saying, creativity is when you can think of something that is unique and novel, right? So it's useful and unique. That is true creativity, right? And he said is like... the reason why people think everyone is creative is like, okay, because what'll happen in a class is like, okay, cool. Let's say you say, here's a brick. You write in 1 minute as many uses for a brick as possible. What's going to happen is that everyone in the class is going to be creative, but 90% of the class is going to produce the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like their creativity is equal to that of the next person.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, they actually don't produce anything novel. But it's an action of being creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
it's not novel. Okay.
Actually, the thought is the same. So it's like, for me, it's like I almost look at my affinity to castles like everyone has an affinity to castles because they're fucking cool. You know what I mean? So it's like it's equal to that example. So I don't know how to prove the whole question of, I know we went to a little bit of a segue there, but it's like...
Well, it's a good segue, man, because I think in my life, I don't think this is the first rodeo. Like when I live my life, I don't think this is the first time I've done this. And I think this is one. This life is an important one. I don't know for what reason, but I know it's important. And I know that I have a feeling that if I don't get something right, I'll have to redo it again.
See, but then you're contradicting your free will and destiny thing then. If it's your destiny, you'll get it right.
Fair comment.
See, I don't know, man. It's such a deep question.
Look, man, I've thought about
because we sort of have like because of the you and I are sort of like
it may not actually
we're global citizens, so we like we mix a little bit of reincarnation and we mix a little bit of this and we mix a little bit of that to come up with conclusions, but it's like it's not our own conclusions, it's based off of other conclusions, and that's what I'm aware of.
But it's not, for me, it's not about I don't think it deviates from the destiny aspect, because it's not about, I think the part of this life that I'm living is about not betraying myself. And I don't think it's about it's not about, the path isn't going to change, but my outlook on the path is going to. So I think to myself, maybe like part of why I'm here is so that I don't change the way that I look at the path.
The path?
Yes, because the path is still the same. Because the only thing that's changed is just my outlook on the path. So I don't think, that's what I think is the test.
Sure, but I mean that is true only to your current existence. Where it's like, okay, cool. Tie that into your previous example where you say you've done this before. So do you think that I don't know, not this particular life, not this particular one. I think that I've lived lives before. An amalgamation of all of the lives.
Yeah, like I've lived a bunch of lives before.
What happens when you get to the end? What happens when you figure it out? What happens where is the end? Is there an end?
I don't know if there is an end. I think there's one theory that goes along the lines of saying that we live in a universe that regurgitates our consciousness for some or other reason. It might be trying to develop something.
Maybe why history repeats itself.
I think it's one of the things that when I talk about that central intelligence, I think that intelligence is trying to get to somewhere, and I don't know what it is, but it's trying to do something, and it's trying to get to a point. So there's a theory that goes around that, like,
what if there's no point?
If there's no point, then it's merely and this is a theory that I've had as well, that it may be just that we're doing this for enjoyment.
Yeah, the universe is doing it, and
that I've gotten a good one. So like, it's like in the previous life, I may be a really rich person, and I'm like, oh, his story looks interesting, I want to live his. Could be that. Could be like, there's a bunch of possibilities, but everyone I've theorized or played out comes off as being somewhat safe. Except for the one where there's actually like external forces that are trying, like, if aliens exist and aliens are doing whatever they're doing into the world for what, if they're trying to synthesize what's happening in their home world so that they can come up for a solution that could be potentially better, that's not good for us.
Sure.
But that is a possibility. It's not. I'm not saying that it's not a possibility. I think it is.
Sure.
I think there's an aspect. I mean, if you look at the stuff that's happened in Egypt, you look at the stuff that's happened in the Aztecs. I think there's an aspect of life that
so unknown. Yeah.
You look at DMT, man.
Dude,
Right.
but I mean, not even DMT. DMT is like somewhat local, but the fact that the Pentagon came out. I think was it the Pentagon?
Oh yeah, and they came out and they're like, yeah,
like, hey man, we have got extraterrestrial spacecraft.
It's like there's been aliens. Aliens have been around, and everyone like just brushed that off.
Man, it was so brushed off, and I'm like, are you fucking?
Isn't that the cool
man?
thing about media? Like media does that. Like media's like,
yeah, they can take like a crucial piece of information and be like.
So actually, here's a question. Like, what do you think? After looking at COVID and what it's done, do you think this was actually orchestrated?
To an extent, I believe that.
And what do you think the purpose of it was? What were they trying to prove? What's the thesis?
Okay, all right. So I'm not gonna play my. I'm not gonna display mine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna first put forward other people's views, and then maybe
Then
we
bring
can
it.
discuss the validity of those. Right. So. There's a guy named, I watched a video, someone showed me the video the other day. There's a guy named David Icke. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah, ICKE.
He's a bit of a, he's a bit of a like conspiracy theorist, so I never really take him seriously, but he was making some points about what the world is trying to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like something on the lines of, okay, maybe it's a little bit far, but we don't know where this is actually going to end. That's the reality of it. But he was saying something on the lines of like, first of all, they're integrating things like universal income.
Mm.
At the same time, they're implementing something that's going to destroy your business. And so he's taking these two things and saying what they could, what he said, this is he's saying what they are doing. So this is not, I'm not saying I agree with this, but he's saying they're doing this to weaken people so that they are fully reliant on the government. So it's like a policy in Australia, right? They have universal basic income or something of that form in Australia that already exists, but only if you get the vaccines that they ask you to get.
Ooh.
So if you don't get the vaccine and your kid doesn't get the vaccine, if you or your kid doesn't, so one of those two, you don't get the universal basic income. So his theory on this is like they're using basic income and the socialist sort of viewpoint to drive like a desire from people, and then at the same time destroying business, so that now the world starts becoming reliant on the government, and the government can now enforce anything they want.
Interesting.
So it's like crippling business and crippling people and saying, we have a solution for you, but these are the terms.
Okay.
And it first starts with a vaccine, and then it goes to this, and then it goes to this and this and this, and then it goes on to whatever your imagination can go to, right? So I would say that's probably the top level conspiracy that you can get. And there's some validation to it, because you can even understand why he's saying it, right? Another level I would say is just basically money. Man, do you understand how much money these companies are going to make?
Yeah.
Like,
Pfizer came out with a 90% approval rating.
Yeah, another company came out of the 94%, I think, day before yesterday, right? But it's like, oh, you have to have it twice. You can't have it once. What vaccine have you ever had in your life, ever, that you have to have twice? Literally double your margin, bro. You have to go twice. Once every 2 weeks. Okay. So it's like, it's a fully, like, I think that, okay, there's definitely a money-making scheme there. Also, another potential would be like, okay, cool. The stock market, like, we had the shortest bear market ever in America. It's like the market went down and went up, like, so quickly. It, like, recovered. So it's like, it's almost like there's so much money to be made in that you could almost validate synthesizing a global recession and fixing it.
It was like, what, $5 trillion?
Dude,
yeah.
It was even more than that. I think it was $5 trillion within like the first 2-3 months.
Okay.
So it's probably significantly more than that. It's like create a global recession and then find a solution a year later, fix it. I mean, the solution came even before that. I mean, they fixed it even before that.
I think
So there's so much money in this that you could even validate that it was completely.
I think the
set aside.
money aspect is probably the most rational, because I think a lot of growth in the market was stagnated because there was no longer money in this economic system. So it was a pretty good way to just pump in, like, I think it's close to like almost all the money that's in circulation, and just put it against that the next 12 or whatever so years the market's going to grow.
Sure. I mean, it coincidentally happened at a time where, like,
The S&P 500 is peaking.
yeah,
Yeah, it was
peaking.
like
and it's like we haven't had a recession in
like 12 years. Yeah.
more. It's like, yeah, 12 years, and
yeah.
it's like it's supposed to happen every 7 on average.
It's supposed to happen every 8 years.
Yeah. So it's like, if you synthesize that, you can then cause the crash and the recovery in a much shorter period of time, make a shit ton of money, and then the market will continue that for the next.
But I have
years.
okay, cool. So carry on. I want to get to your theory of why.
Mine.
Yeah.
I think that it's almost like it's almost an accident in a way by the media. Like it's almost like the media rode on a wave that they didn't know what the consequences
Yeah,
were.
and it got too
It's
big.
almost like the
Like, oh shit,
yeah,
guys, we
yeah.
fucked.
It's almost like the yeah. It's almost like the Hillary Clinton thing.
That's actually fair. It is.
It's like a flu started and the wave was like, and the media was just like, yo, we're all gonna fucking die, and everyone believed
It was
them,
like,
and then they were like,
we're gonna die.
shit, we made this up, but
Okay.
oh my god, the World Health Organization saying this, and then they just caused it by just
Hysteria.
hysteria,
Yeah.
man, like absolute hysteria, just for clicks, man.
That's actually.
It's actually fucking plausible. Dude.
Yeah, it is.
Like we're such a dumb fucking generation.
It could be just one of those, like, it's a fluke thing, and everyone was just like, let's just find ways to make the most out of this. And that actually what could
Dude,
be what the media is. It's just
The-
like, we're just gonna find stories. If they grow, they grow.
Dude.
If they don't, whatever.
Yeah, it's like just
It's just
hype,
news.
man.
Yeah,
it's
it's
just hype. It's like, and the whole thing was so perfect for Western media. It's ridiculous, man. It's like virus from China, like the opposition. Can you fucking believe the
Communist,
opposition,
yeah, the
communist, socialist fucking
yeah.
motherfuckers
Yeah.
created a virus that's affecting
And it's
us,
gonna kill us, and you
and it's gonna kill you,
can't
and
see
your
it.
kids,
you
and
can't see it, but you'll get it.
yeah.
Good
You
luck.
have all the
Fuck.
symptoms or no symptoms. You
And
have
you-
flu symptoms,
and you might
or
have it,
fucking
and you
food
don't have it.
poisoning symptoms. Like it's just all over the show, and it's like, it's
Everyone was
wild,
like,
man.
Everyone was like, oh, God, everyone's
Fucking
gonna
China,
die."
fuck, and I think they just got, and then like, it's just a game between all the news agencies. So it's like one is talking about COVID, and they're like, oh, these guys are getting all the views. Let's talk about COVID as well. And then it's just a self-perpetuating system where they drive it so far that you get so many people that are so scared of this thing that governments have to enforce it. Governments actually have to enforce it because so many people are outraged that you're not forced to wear a
But
mask.
doesn't it like feel like it to a stage
Propaganda.
for me? It is propaganda, 100%. But to a stage, to me, everything felt really staged. Like everything felt like, even when I look at presidents, man, I looked at them as like these actors.
Yeah,
Like they were
100%.
just acting as president. I'm just like, everything here, and that's what I've realized in the past probably 6 months. Like everything's very staged. Like everyone's just playing these roles, and it's like whoever plays the roles the best
100%
gets the role. You know, like,
100%.
oh, you want to be CEO? Just pretend to be CEO, and if you do it better than everyone else, you'll be CEO.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I honestly get that. And I mean, like, if you look at the powers who, like, I mean, dude, it's something that could easily be it could be orchestrated amongst those things. It's like, I don't know much about it, but like theoretically, right? Like the World Health Organization and the World Bank. It's like these organizations run by a small group of people. It's like World Health Organization says, hey, you can't do this anymore. This is a law. You need to have a COVID test before you fly. Cool. Guess what? These guys are going to fund you to be able to do that, and you're going to pay them back. Cool. Good idea. Fucking money, bro. South Africa got 500 billion rand. It's like, how the hell are we going to afford to pay that shit back? It's like they wouldn't, like, South Africa needed that 500 billion years ago for infrastructure,
just
for helping people, all this
just for
shit.
helping. Yeah.
Now, we're using all that for, like, some staged fucking
We went through
pandemic.
that cash, eh?
Dude, it's gone. It was gone.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It is gone.
You know how many businesses that helped?
It's gone.
Like 5, dude.
And
it's all owned by the Ramaphosa family.
Couple guys, like, where's that money? It's gone.
Dude, like even African countries like faked how many COVID cases
just
they
so
had
they can
just to get grants.
Bro. They were just like, this is free money.
Yeah.
Oh well, we have all
Thank
the
you.
cases, bro.
Yeah.
Like I remember I went to Lesotho like a weekend, bro. Lesotho's out here telling me they got cases, bro. Lesotho's like, yo, you guys have to get facts. You guys have to, like, when you get to, and you know, have you ever been to Lesotho's airport? Dude, it's the worst. Dude, there's like people there with like fucking Tupperwares and they're just like, and you're like, dude, your airport is like the size of a room, bro. Like my house is bigger than this. And they're like, yo, you've got to get all this. And I'm like, you oaks are actually just having a fucking shit show. Just the fucking shit show. And I get it. It's my personal theory on why this happened. I can't even, there's no like altruistic purpose, man. I just think, I think they were trying to figure out what they could do with the media. I think they.
So, do you think that it was
successful
created? No.
Yeah, I think.
Do you think it was synthesized?
I think it was synthesized.
Someone?
I think the hysteria was synthesized.
Mm-hmm. We can agree on that.
Yes.
But did someone
make
the
the concept of it? Possibly, because if I look at the way everyone's acting now, so think about like there's more people interacting now than there's ever been before in the past 6 months, but no one's reporting that the cases are going up. And everyone's going to say, oh, no, it's because we all have masks on, right? And then the masks are going to go away, and then we're going to get the vaccine, so it actually doesn't matter anymore. But it's like, no one's actually, like, going around and saying, like, you go to gym. Like, when this thing started, people were like, gyms are probably the most hazardous places because it's easy. It's like, if you breathe hard, you spread this to, like, the 10 years people. Okay, cool. Gyms are now...
Yeah.
Just pumping peeps.
100%.
And it's like, but there's more cases of people having it than there's ever been before.
But the news is not published.
But it's just like, nah, it's actually COVID's not a big deal anymore.
I don't know, man. Yeah, you see, also like to agree with what you're saying now is like absolutely milking the commercial aspect of it, right? Like Europe's going through a second wave now. I can tell you now. 100 like
there's milk
there is going to be a second wave in South Africa
100%,
as well
100%.
But we don't have the same weather as fucking Europe where it goes into winter, but there's going just because the media is going to synthesize that, so the media is going to be like, oh, the increase is slightly higher than before, guys, second wave is coming, and we're just going to follow the same fucking route, and we're going to go through the same shit.
I think like South Africans are just cucks for like westernized stuff, bro. Like we look at whatever America and like the UK do and we're like, oh my god, this makes so much sense. It's like, you guys haven't validated shit. You're like, yeah, but they're doing it, so it must make sense.
Yeah. No,
it's
sure.
terrible.
Yeah.
My friend, how do you think this went for the first podcast?
We're calling it. We should eat.
The podcast, yeah, ciao.
Yeah.
Like
how long have we been on for?
I think it's close to 2 hours.
What?
Yeah.
Shit. I wonder if people listen to this.
No, it's not 2 hours. I'm lying. It'll be an hour and a half. Yeah.
Okay.
It's long. Like it's
That's
a listen.
That's good.
Lot of big concepts that were thrown around.
It was.
We really dived into like the crux.
We got into meaning of life.
Like what? Yeah. Like what? The first episode. What does life mean? Like, how do you top that, bro?
But yeah, man, let's see how it goes.
All
Thank
right.
you. Appreciate
Hey
it.
man, thank you.
It's good.
Hopefully you can get a headphone that works on both sides. Because
Hey,
it was
one
great
day.
having surround sound.
I can imagine.
But I mean, like, it's one step at a time. Like the first time we tried this,
Yeah, episode 1. Have you ever watched Joe Rogan's episode 1?
we probably
Neither
should.
has anyone else.
We probably should.
Ooh.
You're right. Just to be like, oh, we did it better than you. You suck. You lost. You lost a bunch of South Africans. Anyways, I think that should be our tag. You lost, and then just end it.
Could be.
You lost. Yeah,
Yeah, lost. Deuce. Deuce could be one.
Deuce. But
Yeah.
you need to get like Alana to come in and be like, deuce.
Yeah, or just do it like they do in tennis, bro. Because you mean like deuces, but you could just be like deuce.
Juice. Anyways, guys, if there are
Peace out.
guys that are listening,
Probably not.
we're like 2 people, bro.
Hey man, Megan, we appreciate it.
It's probably Megan. Shout out to Megan.
Shout out to Megs.
It's probably like,
It's the right thing to do.
this is for Meg.
Yeah,
Actually.
this whole conversation was just because we miss. Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right.
Anyways,
End it. Do it.
do it. 3,
Two.
2,
Deuce.
1.